You know that feeling when you're home alone and you hear a weird noise? You tell yourself it's the house settling, the wind, your imagination. But what if you heard the noise stop? Not like something turned off. I mean the normal noises of your house, the fridge humming, the clock ticking, they just cut out. As if something was in the room with you, listening so hard, it sucked all the sound out of the air. So that's how I knew I wasn't alone. The silence got too quiet, and by the time I heard the wet, dragging footsteps coming up my stairs, it was too late to run. He wasn't breaking in. He was already inside. I moved to the town of Coldwater Ridge because I wanted quiet, real quiet, the kind where you can hear your own heartbeat. My old life was too loud, full of angry shouts and sad goodbyes. I needed a place to disappear. The old house at the end of Hemlock Drive was perfect. It was the last house on the street, right up against a huge dark forest. The realtor called it full of character. That's just a nice way of saying it was old and kind of broken. The house was tall and pointy, like a house from a scary movie. The paint was peeling. The front porch sagged in the middle. The windows were dark, like the house was sleeping with its eyes open. At first, the quiet was nice. Then winter came. The snow fell for days. It buried the road. The power kept going out. I was totally alone and cut off from the world. That's when the quiet changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt thick. It felt like it was watching me. There was one big problem. The lock on my bedroom door didn't work. You could push the little button, but it wouldn't actually lock. It was a stupid thing I kept forgetting to fix. I lived alone, so who cared? I was about to find out. It was a Tuesday. I went to bed early. I woke up in the middle of the night, but not from a noise, because the dark felt wrong. The room was pitch black. My digital clock was dead from a power outage, but I could see my bedroom door. It was open, just a crack. My heart hammered in my chest. It's just the wind, I thought. You didn't shut it all the way. I was too scared to turn on the light. I got up, my feet cold on the floor, and pushed the door shut. I held my breath and listened. Nothing. I got back into bed and stared at the door. An hour went by. Then I heard it. A soft, wet, dragging sound. Like someone in soaked socks sliding across the hallway floor. The sound started at the top of the stairs. It dragged past my door. It went all the way down the hall to the spare bedroom. Then it stopped. Suddenly the room got freezing cold. A chill leaked under the door and wrapped around my ankles. I couldn't move. I was too scared to breathe. The silence after the sound was the worst part. It was a waiting silence. Finally, morning came. Gray light filled the room. The door was shut. I almost convinced myself I'd dreamed it. But later, in the hallway, I saw a damp spot on the floor. A smudge, almost dry. It went from the stairs to the spare room. It smelled like a dirty pond. I scrubbed it away, telling myself it was nothing. The next night, I shoved a piece of wood under my door to block it. I fell asleep, exhausted. I woke up because of a smell. It was that pond smell again, but worse. Like rotten fish and wet leaves. The smell was inside my bedroom. I looked at the door. The wood block was still there, but the door was open. A few inches. The smell was pouring through the opening, and I knew, with every hair on my body standing up, that I was not alone. There was something in the corner of my room, a patch of shadow that was darker than the rest. It was just standing there, watching me. I was frozen. Slowly, so slowly, I slid my hand under my pillow. I felt the handle of my hunting knife. I didn't pull it out, I just held it. We stayed like that forever. Me pretending to sleep, it pretending to be a shadow. Then I heard the drag again. But this time it was in my room. It moved from the corner across my rug. I heard a soft drip, drip, drip with it. It stopped right next to my bed. A terrible cold came off it. I kept my eyes squeezed shut. My breathing was loud and ragged in the silent room. It made a sound. A low, wet grumble, deep in its throat. It wasn't a word. It was the sound of something looking at its food. Then the dragging sound moved away. Out the door. Down the hall. The second it was gone, I exploded into action. I jumped out of bed, slammed the door, and shoved my heavy dresser in front of it. I spent the rest of the night in the corner, holding my knife, shaking. In the morning, I called the police. I was a mess, talking too fast. 2 cops came. A young one who looked bored, and an older one who looked tired. They searched the whole house. They found nothing. No broken windows. No footprints. Old houses make noises, the older cop said. Especially when you're alone. Your mind can play tricks on you. While he talked, I looked out the kitchen window at my snowy backyard. The forest was a wall of black trees. That's when I saw him. A man standing at the edge of the trees. He wasn't dressed for the snow. He wore dark clothes. He stood crooked, one shoulder higher than the other. He was completely still, staring right at the house. "There!" I yelled, fogging up the glass. "There he is!" The cops looked. By the time they got to the window, the man was gone. There were no footprints in the deep snow leading to where he'd been. "Probably a deer," the young cop said. The older cop didn't say anything. He just looked from the snow, to the woods, to me. His tired eyes got a little more serious. They left. The house was quiet again. But it was a different quiet. It felt smug, like it knew a secret. And I knew a terrible truth. That man didn't come from the woods to the house. He had gone out to the woods, after being inside the house. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on. At 3 a.m. the lights flickered. In that moment of near darkness, I felt a heavy thump come through the floor from upstairs. He was back in. For a week, it was a nightmare routine. Every night the same thing. The wet drag up the stairs. A long pause outside my barricaded door. Then the drag back down. I heard him exploring. I heard him open the bathroom cupboard. I heard the closet under the stairs creak open. I found more proof. A wet spot on the hallway floor. A creepy handprint on the frosty basement window, but on the inside of the glass. My food started to disappear. A can of soup, ripped open. A loaf of bread with a single weird bite taken out of it. Then came the humming. A low, tuneless hum. It vibrated in the walls. It would move through the pipes and stop right outside my door. He would stand there and hum for hours. It was the most frightening sound I'd ever heard. It was the sound of something that was comfortable, something that was home. I was losing my mind. I was too scared to eat or sleep. But a new feeling started to grow under the fear. Anger. This was my house. He was a thief in the night. A squatter. On the 8th night, things changed. The dragging came upstairs, past my door, and went into the spare room. The door clicked shut. Then, nothing. For 2 hours, there was only silence. It was worse than the sounds. What was he doing in there? Finally, I couldn't take it. I had to know. I moved the dresser and crept into the hallway, my knife ready. The spare room door was closed. From inside, I heard a new sound. Thump, thump, thump. A soft, steady knocking. It sounded like someone knocking their head against the inside of the closet door. My fear turned into wild hope. He was trapped in the closet. If I could lock the bedroom door, I could trap him inside the room. My heart pounding, I snuck down to the basement. I found an old heavy chain and a padlock. I rushed back upstairs. The thump, thump, thump was still going. With shaking hands, I wrapped the chain around the doorknob and a post on the stairs. I clicked the padlock shut. I had him. I backed away, a crazy laugh stuck in my throat. I'd won. The thumping stopped. The silence was sudden and total. Then a voice came from behind the door. It was wet and gurgly, like someone talking with a mouthful of mud. "Little pig," it said, "I'm not in the closet." A floorboard creaked, right behind me. In the doorway of my own dark bedroom, I turned my head, my whole body screaming in terror. He was there. He filled the doorway. He was taller than a man and bent over. His skin was a sick gray-green color, like a frog's belly. His hair was wet and stringy. Water dripped from his sleeves and made a puddle on the floor. But his eyes were the worst. They were black, like holes, and they were smart. They looked at me with a cold, hungry understanding. He smiled. His teeth were small, dark and pointed. "I'm home," he rasped. I ran. I don't remember how I got down the stairs. Remember throwing open the front door and bursting out into the freezing night. I was barefoot, in just my pajamas. So I ran down the snowy road, the ice cutting my feet, crying and screaming. I didn't stop until I saw another house with a light on. I beat on the door until an old man let me in. The police came back. This time they found proof. They found my chain and lock on the spare room door. They found wet footprints, some my size, some bigger, leading from the spare room to my bedroom. They found the basement window pried open from the inside. When spring came, I went back with the sheriff. The snow had melted. In the backyard, we saw paths. Narrow, packed-down paths from the forest to the house. They led to the basement window. Under that window, in the mud, we found his nest. A hole dug under the house. My stolen food cans were there. An old blanket, some of my spoons. He had been living under my house, in the crawl space. He had been there for months, watching me, waiting for the deep snow to trap me. The sheriff thought it was a homeless man, sick in the head. A sad story. Then we went to the spare room closet. The sheriff shone his flashlight inside and jumped back. The inside of the closet door was destroyed. Long, deep scratches were clawed into the wood. At head level, there was a dark stain in the middle of a circle of dents. Thump, thump, thump. It wasn't him knocking that night. He had put someone else in that closet before me. Someone who had knocked and scratched until they couldn't anymore. The stain was from their head. The sheriff's face went pale. This wasn't just a homeless man. This was a predator. I moved far, far away. I live in an apartment building now, with a doorman and security cameras. I have the best locks money can buy. I sleep with the lights on. But sometimes late at night I'll wake up, not from a bad dream, not from a sound. I'll wake up because the normal noises of the city outside will go quiet for a second. Just a little pocket of silence. My heart will start to race. My mouth will go dry. And I'll look at my strong, modern, locked bedroom door. I'll stare at it in the dark, and I'll wait. I'll wait to hear a soft, wet drag on the other side. Because a lock can only protect you if the thing you're afraid of is on the outside. And I know, deep in my bones, that some things, once they get inside, never really leave. They find a home in the dark corners of your life.